So let's dig into a really powerful idea. What if the biggest changes in your life didn't come from some huge dramatic overhaul, but from tiny, almost invisible actions you take every single day? That's exactly what we're talking about today, the incredible power of atomic habits. You know that feeling, right? You set a big goal, maybe a New Year's resolution, and you're all in for a week, and then life happens. It's that super common frustration of wanting to change but struggling to make any of it actually stick. Well, you are not alone. For this explainer, we're diving straight into the brilliant insights from James Clear's game-changing book, Atomic Habits. We're going to unpack the science behind why we struggle and, more importantly, what we can do about it. All right, so here's our roadmap. First, we're going to look at the surprising math behind tiny gains. Then, we'll talk about why you should probably forget about your goals and focus on something else. After that, we'll get into a simple 4-step framework for any habit. And we'll wrap it all up with the most powerful idea of all: how your identity is the key to everything. Okay, first things first, we have to start with the foundational idea of the whole book. This is the incredible, almost magical power that comes from making tiny, tiny improvements. It's all about understanding why the smallest habits, they're the ones that lead to the biggest results. So check this out. It really doesn't seem like much, does it? Just getting 1% better? I mean, that's like reading one extra page of a book or doing one single push-up. But here's where the magic happens. When you let that tiny improvement compound day after day for a whole year, the result is just staggering. You're not just a little bit better. You are nearly 38 times better. That is the explosive power of consistency. But here's the catch, and this visual shows it perfectly. We expect our progress to look like a straight upward line. But in reality, it's that curve at the bottom. For weeks, sometimes even months, you're putting in the work, but it feels like nothing. This gap right here between what we expect and what's really happening is what James Clear calls the valley of disappointment. And this is the danger zone. It's where most people give up, literally right before the breakthrough. You know, this idea is so powerful. The San Antonio Spurs, one of the most successful teams in NBA history, actually keep this quote hanging in their locker room. Think about it. The final hit that splits the rock gets all the attention, but it's totally meaningless without the 100, maybe 200 swings that came before it. That's what your tiny habits are doing. They're building up pressure, getting you ready for that breakthrough. And if you want a real-world example, just look at the British cycling team. They went from being completely mediocre for about a century to absolute domination. How? By focusing on what they called the aggregation of marginal gains. They literally hunted for 1% improvements everywhere they could think of. The best massage gels, the perfect pillows for each rider. They even painted their equipment truck white just so they could spot tiny bits of dust that might mess with the bikes. No single thing was a magic bullet, but altogether, it made them unstoppable. Okay, so if consistent action is the secret sauce, how in the world do we stay consistent? Well, this brings us to a really crucial shift in thinking. We're always told to set goals, right? But here's something fascinating. Winners and losers, they often have the exact same goals. So the goal itself can't be the thing that separates them. So what it's the system. See, goals are about the finish line, the result you want. Systems are about the process you follow every single day. So a goal is, I want to write a book. A system is, I will write 500 words every morning at 8 a.m. Goals give you direction, for sure, but it's the systems that actually get you there. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. This story from the book just nails the point. A photography professor splits his class in two. One group, he says, will be graded purely on the quantity of photos they turn in, the more the better. The other group, they'll be graded on producing just one single perfect photo. So at the end of the semester, which group do you think had the best pictures? It was the quantity group by a landslide. Why? Well, because they weren't stressing about perfection. They just built a system of shooting, learning, and getting better with every single click of the camera. All right, so we get it. We need to focus on tiny habits and build good systems. But how? How do we actually do that? This brings us to the really practical, nitty-gritty part of the book, a simple 4-step framework you can use to build literally any habit you want. This right here, this is the engine that drives every single one of our habits, good or bad. It's a 4-step loop that's always running in the background of our brains. There's a cue that triggers a craving that leads to a response, which gives us a reward. So if we want to build good habits, all we have to do is hack this loop. We make the cue obvious, the craving attractive, the response easy, and the reward satisfying. Let's break that down. So let's start with law number 1. Make it obvious. Look, we are way more influenced by our surroundings than we think. A lot of the time, our habits aren't about a lack of motivation, it's just a lack of awareness. If you want to remember to take your vitamins, don't hide them in a cabinet. Put them right next to your coffee maker. The absolute best way to change your habits is to redesign your environment. This is such a brilliant example of that. A hospital cafeteria wanted to get people to drink more water. They didn't put up posters or launch some big campaign. Nope. They just made the cue more obvious. They put water bottles in all the drink fridges and next to the cash registers. And just like that, water sales jumped by over 25%. They just changed the environment, and our behavior followed suit automatically. Next up, Law 2. Make it attractive. We're more likely to do something if we think it's going to feel good. You can actually engineer this using a cool trick called temptation bundling. It's where you pair something you need to do with something you want to do. For example, tell yourself, I'm only allowed to watch my favorite Netflix show while I'm on the exercise bike. Pretty soon, you'll start to actually crave the workout because you associate it with something you love. Law 3 is a big one. Make it easy. We have to be honest with ourselves. Our brains are hardwired to save energy, which means we will almost always choose the easiest option. So to build a good habit, you have to lower the friction. Lay out your workout clothes the night before. Put your book on your pillow. Every little barrier you remove makes the good habit just that much more likely. And on the flip side, you want to increase the friction for your bad habits. This is a wild but brilliant example. To force himself to finish his novel, the author Victor Hugo had his assistant lock away all of his clothes, leaving him with nothing but a big shawl. He made it incredibly hard to go outside and procrastinate, which made writing the path of least resistance. He didn't rely on willpower, he just redesigned his whole world. Okay, and that brings us to our last and honestly, maybe the most important concept. This goes way beyond just the mechanics of habits. This gets to the real heart of what makes change last. It's about shifting your entire focus from what you want to achieve to who you want to become. Just look at the difference here. The old way is outcome-based. The goal is to run a marathon. The new way is identity-based. The goal is to become a runner. See the shift? One is about a temporary finish line. The other is about who you are. The real goal isn't just to read a book, it's to become a reader. That focus is what makes the habits stick around for good. There's this great story in the book about a man who bit his nails his entire life. He finally managed to stop, and then he did something he'd never done before. He got a manicure. And the manicurist told him he had really nice hands. For the very first time in his life, he felt pride in his fingernails. His identity instantly shifted. He was no longer a guy trying not to bite his nails. He was a person who takes pride in his hands. He never bit them again. And this is really the ultimate point. True, lasting behavior change is identity change. Every single action you take is like casting a vote for the type of person you want to become. Every time you go for a run, you cast a vote for I'm a runner. Every time you write a single page, you cast a vote for I'm a writer. Your habits are just the path you take to embody your new identity. So let's wrap this all up. Remember, aim for that tiny 1% improvement every day. It compounds into something massive. Focus on your systems, not just your finish lines. Use those 4 laws to your advantage. Make it obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. And most of all, never forget that the real goal isn't just to get the results. It's to become the kind of person who gets those results. So I'll leave you with this one question to think about. Who is the person you truly want to become? Now, what's the smallest, most atomic habit you could do today that would cast a vote for that person? That's it. That's your starting line.